The end depends upon the beginning. It's a poor libation to Hestia. A child of the immortals offers fire to the immortals. O blessed Hestia, mistress of fire and light, flesh of my soul, bring into my home your divine fire. Let my house partake of your wisdom, love, and power. Blessed Hestia, be welcome in my home. Welcome everyone to the first episode of Discussion with a Neophyte. Before I get into this video, I want to let everyone know that I am going to discontinue the Echoes from the Temple mobile app on Android. It just hasn't been very cost efficient to maintain. However, I am not getting rid of the website. All of that will be maintained along with the calendar. It will all still be accessible. I also want to remind everyone that the new Discord server is up. It is free, and you can access the invite link in the link tree in the description below. So, moving on, this video today, I am being joined by Daniel. He is a neophyte within the Church of Thessaly and moving very quickly to the rank of Zelator. So, without further ado, let's bring him in. So thank you, Daniel, for joining me today, taking the time out of your day to do this. I'm really excited to hear some of the answers that you give from your own experiences, as well as some other people that I'm going to be speaking with soon.
Thank you. It's great to do this. I'm super excited for some of these.
Getting right into it, can you explain a little about your background, such as the religion in which you were raised, if any, and any experience within magic? And have you always had an interest in the occult?
So my background religiously is kind of a long story, but growing up, I grew up in like your typical like Baptist Catholic style South Louisiana household. Due to some events that happened in my lifetime, I very quickly got over that. Um, and for a long time I called myself a agnostic Buddhist. I definitely believed in a higher power, and I definitely believed in a variety of spiritual and occultic ideas, but I didn't really have like answers. I wasn't like, yes, this pantheon is right, or these philosophers are right. Um, and my history in the occult uh, is mostly Gnostic with a little bit of Celtic background. I have some Druidic friends who were kind enough to share some of their experiences with me when I was younger.
I find a lot of people have actually started their exploration into the occult and paganism in general within the Celtic and Druidic. I did the same.
I think it's just easier to approach the Druids while they were very isolationist. It's really easy to understand that we all come from the earth. We all come from the same thing. We all bleed the same color. Um, I think it's just an easy step to take. Um, and they do have a lot of things right. I don't think they had everything right, but I don't think anybody has everything right. So that's why we're studying. That's why we're practicing.
Oh, I agree with you 100. So, how did you come to find the Church of Thessaly?
Um, so I'd mentioned that for a long time I called myself an agnostic Buddhist, and somewhere in there I started working really heavily with blacksmithing and metalworking and that sort of thing. And people were like, you go into like these manic phases where you'll just go into the forge for like 12, 13, 14 hours, and like you come out and I'm like, fine, like no burns, no And I was like, oh yeah, the spirit of metallurgy just kind of takes me over. You kind of go learn to go with it. And I started doing research on all the different metallurgic gods, the African gods, the Osira. I think I'm saying that right. They have a god of metallurgy or an Oshi of metallurgy. In Chinese, there's an immortal of metallurgy. Obviously, Greek and Roman, there's Hephaestus and Vulcan, which we know a lot about. Um, and like it was really interesting to see, all these different stories. And the one that happened to resonate with me the most ended up being Hephaestus. That's a long story to get to where I'm going. One of my friends, a previous member of the church, I jokingly said that, I was a follower of Hephaestus because I would go into the forge and go do whatever I wanted to do, or like I would grab something that's clearly on fire, knock it burn, things like that. And she was like, "You should come check out my church. I think you would like it." And I did.
That's awesome. I don't really have any experience with metalwork except for one knife I forged while on vacation in Tennessee. But yeah. So
Oh, did you
did you,
go to Crooked Forge?
I don't remember which one it was. Uh,
There's a guy out there named Jordan who does great work, great classes. If you ever get the chance to take a class with him, do it. Life-changing experience. Great man.
okay. Yeah, the one I did, we forged a knife out of a railroad spike. It was pretty fun.
Railroad spike knives are really fun. Yeah.
So did you always have an interest in Greek mythology?
Uh, I'm not gonna say always. For a long time, it was more Egyptian mythology than Greek mythology. But I've always had an interest in mythology as a whole. I've always been interested in the way humans explain what's going on. Um, and that's how I view the gods. Like I'll use Zeus as an example. We see this awe-inspiring thunderstorm that can destroy and light up the sky in the middle of night, and ancient man had to come up with a story for that. And from from the ancient world view, it's really neat to go, okay, they called this Zeus, that he did these things, he was associated with these things. And as we understand it from an occult side, those lightning bolts have a very specific energy. We understand that lightning is literally energy, it's electricity. And knowing that that's something that we try to work with rather than against. I think is really cool.
Absolutely. So before becoming involved in Hellenism and with the Church of Thessaly, were you ever deeply involved in any other religion? I know you said you explored and you studied, but did you ever like deep dive into them?
I'm gonna say no, but only because that's a really complex answer. Like I deep dove into Christianity and the more Gnostic ideas of Christianity um before I went, okay, well that whole thing just doesn't line up for me. I got really interested in Egyptian mythology, but it's just so hard to get good information that I kind of lost interest. And I think one of the reasons why I've been able to get so deep into Hellenism is we have a good teacher and a good understanding of what we're going for. Uh, and that helps a lot. Like having somebody to go, hey, you're straying off the you're straying off the path. This is what we need to look at. Helps a lot.
I agree. Having someone there to help guide you on the way is a really useful tool rather than, relying on books. And to touch on what you had said, I think Christianity viewed as a mystery religion is completely different from what we see Christianity as today. And I really don't think there's anyone out there doing it, in my opinion, the way it was meant to be. But that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah,
Uh,
if we get into that, we'll be talking about
yeah.
some really deep stuff. We'll go into the Goesa, we'll go into the Abramelin operation, we'll go into all these really cool things, and they're cool. And there's a lot of good information in there, but I don't think that's what we're here for.
No, you're way off topic. So, at what point did you get involved? Like, did you really get involved in the Hellenic religion? I know you've been in the Church of Thessaly for a little while now, and you've really dove into the studies, but what really pulled you into it?
uh God, that's a question that I don't have a solid answer for. So I joined just just over a year now. Like I made my year 2 weeks ago. Um, and I was really interested when I first started because give me new information. Super happy camper, right? Um, a series of events occurred, and I switched from uh one Temenos to Monty's Temenos. Um, I don't feel like getting into what happened. But after learning with Monty, I just felt more um like there was more substance to grasp. Like I had somebody that I could actually learn from, not somebody that was just kind of there to teach. And I know that that doesn't sound like those things are different, but they are.
No, I understand what you're saying, and probably best that we not get off into that either.
Yeah. I don't really want to a deep dive into that whole situation, but there's a difference. Like I mean, you interviewed Monty a couple weeks ago on your channel, and like anybody that's listened to that interview understands that he's a wealth of information. Um,
He didn't have notes sitting in front of him during our conversation.
I probably should have notes in front of me so we stay on track.
But so what were your first thoughts when you got involved with the Church of Thessaly? What really stuck with you?
Oh God. Um, I hate admitting that the first thoughts that came out of I think they actually came out of my mouth after the first ritual that I was in. It was, oh God, I'm about to join a cult. Yeah, I feel like it's not a wrong statement. It's just the word cult has a lot of negative intonations involved. Um, Also, aforementioned move from old Temenos to new Temenos had a lot to do with that.
Yeah. It, for the record, anyone listening, the Church of Thessaly is not a cult. So, would you say that you've always
Technically
searched
speaking, all churches are cults. Just saying.
in the more modern term, it's not a cult.
Yeah, yeah.
So, would you say that you've always searched for spirituality in your life?
I've always searched for something higher. Um, because you look at anything from any point of view. I've looked at things from a completely atheistic point of view. No matter what I do, I go, there's something bigger than us as humans. I don't care what you want to call it. Okay. For the Church of Thessaly, we call it the One. For Christians, they call it God. For conspiracy theorists, they call it aliens. There's something bigger than us. I don't care what you call it, but there's something there, and I need to learn more about it.
So you've been on a journey most of your life, then seeking, wanting answers.
Yes.
So how would you say that your life has changed since you've joined the Church of Thessaly and leading a more spiritually aligned life, focusing on the gods and the Neoplatonic philosophy?
I would say that my life has gotten better in as much that I've regained a lot of the discipline I had whenever I was deep into the martial arts. Um, and that discipline alone has been very beneficial. Not to mention that I'm starting to notice um energetic trends, I guess is the best way to put it. Um, and that's really helpful.
All right. So we know that making changes to your own life can bring about difficulties that you have to overcome. What challenges came up in your life when you made the change to living a more spiritually aligned life?
The biggest one is that I uh I went back to living in my house that was affected pretty heavily by Hurricane Ida, rather than deal with my family members who are, let's say, uncomfortable with me doing things like performing daily ritual, burning incense, bringing in images of various deities, and researching things like animal sacrifice. Um, to be clear, I haven't done an animal sacrifice, and they are very uncommon as far as I know. But I like having the knowledge of, when would an animal sacrifice be appropriate? What animals are most appropriate to what deities and for what reasons? And that makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's a very taboo topic in the occult and pagan community today. So you don't really hear too many people openly discussing it. So if you could go back and change anything, what would it be? Speaking about your spiritual journey.
If I could change just one thing, I think it would be at the height of my martial arts journey, introducing myself or finding the church. I feel like at that height, I I would I would have already had the discipline necessary to delve deeper, and I feel like I would be further along the path at this point. Um, which is funny to say because I realize that I'm moving into the next level of studies faster than some of the other students. But I feel like I'm going slow, and I'm like, I feel like a more disciplined me would have done better.
I wouldn't put too much stress on yourself, too much pressure on yourself about that. You're moving along quite good. Uh,
Appreciate that.
yeah, I mean, you'll be in Zelator very soon, and you'll have more work to do.
We always have more work to do. That's
And it's never done. So, would you recommend a spiritual life to others? And what would you say to them to help them prepare for it, if you would recommend it?
I like that your question insinuated that I would, because for the vast majority of people, I would not. Um, I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you that it's easy to uh get home after, a 12, 16 hour shift, still have to bathe and clean up the house and deal with, in my case, pets, in some people's case, children, and then perform a daily ritual and alignment and um, make sure that you're ready for any rituals that might occur, purification, um, that comes with that. And I realize that I'm still on the lower levels where these are fairly easy. It's just a bath with a particular salt. It's just, making sure that you do a brief prayer that doesn't take more than 5 minutes, but it can be even at this lower level where it's just aligning and starting to build a foundation. It's not necessarily easy, and it's not going to get easier. So for the vast majority of people, I would not actually suggest seeking that spiritual enlightenment. It's not a path for everybody. um
Would you say it was rewarding though?
oh, for sure, it's
Just
worth
not
it.
easy.
It's worth it. It's easily worth it, but it's not easy. And
If it
that's
was
that's the
easy,
entire
everyone
reason
would
why.
do it though.
You're right. You're right. Um, and I
It is
think
much
that's one of the
easier to
draws.
follow the crowd.
Yes. Um, and I think that's one of the draws for some other mainstream religions. It's easier, you know?
So
Um,
now that you're nearing the end of your neophyte training and preparing for your initiation in the Zelator, what thoughts are going through your mind?
um, Most of it's excitement. I'm not gonna lie. Um, I know I just said that it's not easy, uh, coming home after a long day and performing a ritual. And I know that I'm going to be adding more rituals. Um, you mentioned that there was going to be something similar to the lesser banishing ritual of pentagrams, um, and various other things like that. And I'm super excited for all of those because I I really enjoy the hands-on of um of doing ritual, of going in and worshiping the gods and feeling those various energies flowing, and seeing how it affects not just myself, but others and their world. um so I'm really excited to see what uh what changes and what um hands-on work I get to sink my teeth into.
I think you're going to do fine. Uh,
Thank you.
you get to start reading the dialogues too, so
The,
I think it's going to be plenty of work for you to do and plenty of hands-on. I think you'll excel in it. How has the journey to this point been for you? I know you just made it, you just made a year. How has this year been?
very, very rewarding. Very rewarding. The the pagan community as a whole is usually uh fairly. accepting, but kind of cliquish, I guess is the right way to say it. Um, and I guess the best way to say it is I found my clique. I found a group. I feel comfortable and at home with these people because I mentioned earlier that it's not easy to go through the different teachings. Like anybody that's listened to your videos and tried to understand Salustus, they know, and that's the first thing we read. And that doesn't get into our cosmology or our ontology. That doesn't get into uh, the diff. That doesn't get into the different readings of the Iliad or the Odyssey, or what a variety of those different passages could mean from any point of view. Um, so it's nice to be able to say that I'm part of a group where I know these people can engage with me intellectually as well as spiritually. They can engage with me and challenge me and help me grow. And that's important to me. So
So, what concerns, if any, do you have continuing your training and journey?
I don't think I currently have any real concerns. Um, at this point, it's just don't die, keep studying.
Did you say don't die, keep studying?
Yeah.
Okay. So, what is your ultimate goal for you personally at this point? And has it changed since you first began?
Um, my ultimate goal is something that I'm aware is impossible. It's supposed to be impossible because I mean I'm looking for spiritual perfection. I when I first joined, I made the joke that I'd like to make a divine item, right? Um, because I consider Hephaestus my patron. Through oracle reading, that was the case. Hephaestus is my patron. And I like the idea of creating an actual divine item, but that's that's vague. It's supposed to be vague because I mean, what does that mean? What is a divine item? You know, and that was the point when I said it the first time. I'm trying to reach a point that I'm never going to reach, and that's the point. Perfection isn't something that we as humans will ever reach, but we should always strive for it, and that is my goal. So perfection, whatever that means for me, friend.
Yeah, you're going to hear a phrase probably quite often coming up. You are a god trying to manifest, so act like it.
I like that one. Yeah.
So, so I know I I've shared this on the channel before that my matron and patron are Dionysus and Hera. Can you talk about yours?
My matron and patron are Persephone and Hephaestus. Persephone, the queen of the underworld and goddess of spring, and Hephaestus, the god of metallurgy. Um, and there's a lot about both of them. And if you let me, I will just sit here and go off on all of the intricacies that both of them hold just mythologically. Um, but I really like Hephaestus. I meant to mention this earlier. One of the reasons why I like Hephaestus so much is one of his epithets, one of his titles is the lame one, because he's always depicted um, either with a club foot or an injured foot or some sort of disability. Um, and when I was born with my feet facing kind of the wrong way, like not completely backwards, but almost backwards. And I had to be in corrective shoes for the first 5 or 6 years of my life. I went to kindergarten in corrective shoes, and kids are not not nice. And I've always had friends that had disabilities, and I dated a young lady with a uh, condition called spina bifida. She was unable to walk her entire life. So the idea that a person who, for all intents and purposes, is disabled, is not perfect, quote unquote, uh, is a god by all rights, a god, um, is just such a powerful story to me, and that's one of the things that drew me to Hephaestus.
It's funny how you mentioned that, you showed a semblance to Hephaestus even at the moment of your birth. Uh, a story that I don't think I've shared on the channel before. When I was a teenager and I came out and told my parents that I was pagan, at the time I wasn't Hellenic. Uh, I was exploring. My father told me a story about when he was a raging alcoholic, that he had gotten into a wreck, and I knew this was correct. I had seen the vehicle because the vehicle was actually dropped off in the woods behind my grandfather's house. Now, during this wreck, he recalled and told the story that he had he was outside of his body looking down on himself while he was probably dying, and he heard a voice ask him, "What do you want?" And he replied that, "I want a son." And he, told me this to try to claim that this was Jesus talking to him. And all these years later, when I had joined the Church of Thessaly and Dionysus pops up, my father was an alcoholic. He had wrecked. He was drunk during the wreck, and he hears a voice talking to him. It
That
was
is
Dionysus.
that is interesting. I like that.
So before we run out of time, do you have anything else you would like to share with anybody listening?
I think I'm good right now. But if that changes, I'll just ask you to do another interview, man.
Well, I would like to do one once you get started in your Zelator and, progress a little ways. I'd like to sit down with you and do another one.
Sounds good. I'd enjoy that.
All right. Well, Daniel, thank you for coming on, man.
Thank you, buddy. You have a good day.
You too.